And I don't think I'm the only one who's having a few technical difficulties. But I did send the quiz by email to everyone. And you can go ahead and start taking the quiz right now. And what I want you to do is select your answers by either highlighting them in a different color or perhaps bolding them, but in some way indicating your answer. That makes it easier for me to grade instead of, well, some people last time just put little black X's next to their selection, and that wasn't very visible to me. So if you can highlight it, that would be great. And if anybody has any trouble accessing the quiz or any questions about the quiz, I'll be right here. I'm with you. And when you're done, you can send it back to me. And when everybody has sent it back by email, then we'll go over it together. Okay?
Julie, is it okay if we underline it?
Yes, underlining is good. I can see that very well. Thank you.
Hi, Professor. This is Elham, and I'm new just today at my class, and I'm so happy.
Yes, I see that I never saw you before. Welcome. And I don't know if you had a chance to play last week's recording.
No, but I just emailed to Miss Tora to and request to email me record
Okay.
last week.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you want to try to take the quiz, you can, but if you're not prepared, it'll just be a missed quiz, and I'll go over some details about that after everybody's done. Right now, I won't bother anybody by continuing to talk.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Okay.
How much time do we have, Dr. Chambers?
I don't actually give you a deadline. Most people finish in about 15 minutes, but because there's difficulties with converting and sending and things, just go as, go at your own pace, and we'll hopefully, 15 or 20 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Should we just put our name below where it says Herbal Pharmacopoeia 3?
You can do that. Actually, when you email it to me, I'll know who you are because I'll see that it came from you, but that would be helpful.
Perfect, thank you.
Sola, I did receive it. Okay, I have about half the quizzes now, so everybody else just kind of hang tight, and when I get them all, we'll continue. Okay, I just got a few more, so I'm just missing, and I'm just saying this in case you did send it and I don't have it, but I'm missing Yoshi, Olivia, Sitlali, and that's it, because I think Elham, you're not taking the quiz, right? Okay. And I just got Sitlali. Am I saying your name right? Please say yes. Where are you?
I sent mine, Dr. Chambers, but my first name is Renee. So if you're looking
Oh,
for the name Yoshi, you won't. Yeah.
okay. I don't think I have it yet, but I know these things can take a few minutes. I just got Olivia.
Okay, let me double check. I sent it.
So your name is Renee, but you want to be called Yoshi, right?
Yeah, my first name is Renee. My middle name is Yoshiko.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna close my email and open it back up again. Sometimes that helps. So Yoshi, did you send it back to the same email account that I sent to you, info@Julie? Okay. So let's just wait a few more minutes. I don't quite see it yet.
It'll be sent by R.Y. Blakeney is the email.
Okay, I definitely would see the word Blakeney and I don't see it yet.
I'll try to resend it right now.
Okay, oh wait. Okay, I just got Sola, or maybe I already had yours, Sola. See, I don't have time while I'm getting ready to teach to look at everybody's email. I'm just seeing that emails are coming in. Yeah, so let's see. Olivia, I have, okay. Sitlali, I have. And I don't see Liana. Is Liana Thomas, are you with us tonight? No, I don't think she's here. Okay, I see that Tamara's here and I got your quiz also. So yeah, so Yoshi, just go ahead and try again. And we'll start to go over the quiz right now, just so we don't lose any more time. If I still don't have it by the break, I might ask you to I don't know. I don't know what the solution is here. It's definitely not showing up in any junk folder.
I'm
Able
I'm
to get it.
resending it again right now.
Okay.
I think you'd be able to get it if she sends through the Zoom.
Wait, everybody's talking at once. So did somebody besides Yoshi try to speak?
Yeah, sorry. I was suggesting that Yoshi direct message you through Zoom. If you can just click that link to open it up, it's more easier. I mean,
Okay, do you know how to do that, Yoshi?
No. but-
Okay.
drop it in a chat box to Julie directly.
Do you know how to go to the, do you know how to open the chat
Oh,
box?
let me see. Let's see. Chat box. 1 second.
You know, this is just, it's just week 2. Everybody's got a lot of things we're trying to get used to. We're just gonna take a deep breath. We got plenty of time tonight. So let's not, okay. Nope. So let's see.
Can I suggest for Yoshi, you could also cut and paste it and then just directly message Julie on the chat so that she just has it right there.
Okay, yeah,
Julie, this
So-
is Esmeralda. I sent you my answers in the body of the Yahoo email. So I didn't really do like the copy and paste, but I'm not sure if that's okay.
that's gonna be fine. Let me just open, oh yes, that's fine. So the way Esmeralda did this is actually good. She just typed in the email reply a list of her answers, 1A, 2B, and that's fine. So that avoids having to, mark up the document, send it back as an attachment. So that's a good way to do it. That's also just fine. Okay, so we're gonna just start going over this, and Yoshi will figure something out, You
Sorry,
could
it's
try.
strange. I've never had an issue sending anything before.
Yeah,
maybe
I just want to make
it's
sure that I'm not mistaken. Okay, I'm gonna see what I have. I have Sola, Adam, Jade, Anitra, Zoe, Louise, Yushin, Forever, Rosa, Eric, Anitra. Oh, I already said it into it. Forever, Sitlali, Olivia, and another message from Sola. So yeah, I just looked at everything. We'll figure something out. Don't worry about it. I know you did it. So now we're going to go over it, and I'm going to have people take a turn to read a question and then tell their answer. And so that means you should have it still pulled up in front of you on your screen so that you could do that. Okay, so Sola, why don't you start with question number 1, please?
Okay, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Okay, so number 1 is which tonic works at the level of the kidney to tonify qi and or kidney yin? The answer is A, Renshen.
Yes, and to tonify source qi was in the question. You didn't say that.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, that's fine. So A, Renshen. Okay, Eric, how about read and answer question number 2?
Yeah, if Dongshen is substituted for Renshen, how should the dosage be adjusted? I put B, use 3 times as much Dongshen as Renshen.
Exactly right. I told you this would be on a quiz someday. Okay, Adam, how about number 3?
My internet connection is a little bad, so let me know if you get this. For immune deficiency, frequent colds, lack of stamina, and chronic cough, which herb is best? I put A, Huang Qi astragalus.
Huang Qi is best, yes. And if anybody has any questions as we go along, or when we're done, just feel free to go ahead and ask me. Okay,
Julie,
yes?
just want to pipe in something real quick to let you know, because of holiday religious reasons, I'm in a long drive back home right now, so I'm doing class from car, and I might cut out at times from internet and then pop back in, just so you know.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and your internet, is a little spotty, but I did hear what you said, so that's good. Okay, Rosa, number 4.
Oh, yes, the one I actually had a question about. Describe the most common symptom of qi deficiency. My question was if it was just general qi deficiency, so I just wrote down weakness / lethargy.
Yeah, that's fine. General qi deficiency, no matter which organ might be involved, is going to involve some kind of fatigue and, as you say, lethargy or low energy. So that's good. That's a good answer. Okay, let's see, where are we? Jade, how about number 5?
What is a common symptom of blood deficiency? I put a couple down. I put down pale complexion, emaciation, insomnia, dizziness.
Good, those are all good. There should be, and this doesn't have to be your exact answer, but there should be some concept of dryness and paleness, because those are the 2 things that most typify blood deficiency. Of course, there could also be fatigue, but that isn't a specific symptom for blood deficiency. That symptom could come along with any of the different deficiencies. And tonight, when we finish, because I think we'll have time, I want to go over again the different symptoms of all the different kinds of deficiencies, just to prepare us for moving forward into the next few weeks. So yes, that was a good answer, Jade. Okay, Olivia, number 6, please.
Julie, I ask you about that one? What about poor circulation? Could that be one of it for the blood?
Yes, except it's not exactly a symptom. So what would you see, or what would you perceive, or what would the patient be complaining of if they had poor circulation? Maybe numbness, maybe cold.
Cold hands and feet.
Yeah, so cold could be another good answer. And I'm going to just check my email again. Yoshi sent it again, and I still don't have it.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Maybe your system, maybe you want to try sending it to my Yosan faculty email address, and then I'll check it at the break. I'm sorry to put you to the trouble.
It's okay.
Or you could try
I'm just not very tech savvy. And
it's okay. It's okay. You could also try sending it to anybody else in the class. Like you could send it to Sola, and then she can send it to me. I don't know, that might work.
Let's
You could
see.
send it to me.
Send it to Esmeralda.
Okay, will you send me your email?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, good. Okay, I like how everybody's working together. Okay, let's see. I think I called on Olivia for number 6.
Yes. So if a patient has a dry and pale tongue, what deficiency is most likely? I put A, yin, but I think it's B, blood. Now that
Good
Yeah.
correction. So when somebody has yin deficiency, would they have a pale tongue or would they have a red tongue?
red.
Yeah, because when people have yin deficiency, they usually have heat because yin is the cooling substance. So a lot of times their dryness can be part of blood deficiency or yin deficiency. So if somebody complains of like dry skin, a dry mouth, then you look at their tongue. If their tongue is pale, you should think about blood deficiency. If their tongue is red, you should think about yin deficiency. Okay, let's see where we are.
Julie,
Yeah,
I ask one, this is Tamara. Can I ask one more question about number 5?
yes.
So could the answer have been lethargy or fatigue?
Yes.
Okay,
But lethargy and fatigue are, well, actually, they're not the best answer because those symptoms are not specific to blood deficiency, although they could be in blood deficiency. So I think, you know, we're early on in this. I think I'm going to give credit because it is a possible symptom, but I would have preferred a more specific symptom that relates more to the blood.
okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Let's see now.
Julie,
Zoe,
Julie, could we go over all of the tongue colors and things? Because I didn't pick blood because I thought that it had to be purplish, you know, for that part, for the
no,
blood.
we
That's why.
definitely need to go over this some more. So a purplish tongue usually indicates blood stagnation, not blood deficiency. So blood stagnation means that the circulation is not proper. And if you imagine like putting a rubber band around your finger and how it turns purple, that's why a blood deficient tongue looks purple because blood isn't circulating. But blood, I mean, did I say blood stagnation? I hope I did. I meant blood stagnation. So blood deficiency, though, is very different from blood stagnation because it means there isn't enough blood or the blood isn't strong enough or isn't proper. So that's why it's pale. But yes, we will go over all the tongue colors as soon as we're done with this quiz. Okay, so let's see. Zoe, again, number 7.
Number 7, for a cancer patient who is undergoing chemotherapy and is in danger of decreased white blood cell levels, which herb will you choose? I put Huang Chi because I remembered it's good for tonifying the blood post-medical thing.
Yes, Huang Chi is probably the most important herb for people undergoing cancer chemotherapy to keep their blood strong. Renshen can also be used, you know, ginseng, but Huang Chi really is famous for that. And so that's the right answer. Okay, let's move on to Louise for number 8.
Which herb is sometimes said to go to all 12 channels? I put A, Renshen.
A is right. Good. Okay, Sitlali number 9.
Which herb is mild, inexpensive, and appropriate for children's qi and yin deficiency? Tai Zishen.
Yeah, see, Tai Zishen. Yeah, and then the ID herb, let's see. Forever, what did you choose?
I chose Dongshen.
Absolutely right, Dongshen. So it has that crinkly look to it. Renshen, if I had given it to you as a picture, I would have given you the whole roots, you know, that look like a man root versus the slices. Because when you have an herb that is in slices, it can look like a lot of other things. So yeah, so Renshen, I would have given you the whole root. Taizishen looks like a very tiny little Renshen, kind of a squiggly worm-like thing. And then this one is Dangshen. Now, if we were actually in class, I would be passing around the herb samples so that you could look at them directly and smell them, but unfortunately this is just not to be. Yeah, so I'm gonna close out my email. So I don't know, let's see. Yoshi, did you already manage to send this to somebody?
Yes, I sent it to Esmeralda and I also sent it to you again, another try. I don't know.
Let me check.
Okay.
Yes, I got it. Renee Blankeny?
Blankeny.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and forward it to you, Dr. Chambers.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'll keep my email open just so I can see if I receive it. Okay, let's now spend some time talking about the tongue colors for the different deficiencies. And I'm just going to look and see if that was part of the document that I reminded you was in your drive after last week. No, I didn't discuss the tongue colors in that the theoretical document that I later posted that was in the drive. So a Qi deficient tongue, normally it could be pale. It could also be, we're not only going to talk about colors, but we can talk about other appearances of the tongue. A Qi deficient tongue can also be swollen with teeth marks. And the reason for that is when there's especially spleen Qi deficiency. When there's spleen Qi deficiency, the spleen is not able to do its job, which is transporting fluids. And so fluids accumulate in the tissues, and that's why you have a swollen tongue. But not everybody with Qi deficiency also has dampness. And I think I just got the mysterious, elusive email that is coming from Esmeralda.
I didn't open it. I just forwarded it.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sure it's there. Okay, so a person with Qi deficiency may have a damp body with fluid retention and be even overweight because their spleen isn't really, the spleen can represent the metabolism and it's not really metabolizing or transporting things very well. But a spleen deficient person can also be thin and, you know, can't put on weight because their spleen isn't able to take in and assimilate the food that they eat. So spleen deficient people could be thin or pudgy. And if they have dampness, their tongue might be swollen as well. But there's no reason why their tongue would be particularly red or super pale or purple or any of the other tongue colors that you could have. Okay, so that's Qi deficiency. A blood deficiency tongue should always be pale, and it could also be dry. So those are the two features you should most look for in a blood deficient tongue. If you believe somebody has blood deficiency, but their tongue isn't pale, you should ask yourself why it isn't pale, and should you really diagnose blood deficiency? It could be that they have some signs of blood deficiency, like palpitations or poor circulation or dizziness, as was mentioned, and it just hasn't progressed enough that their tongue is really showing it. So they may have what we call a normal tongue, which is just pink, you know, pale pink and normal. But if it's very red, you really should not be thinking about blood deficiency. So moving on to a yin deficient tongue could also be dry, just like a blood deficient tongue is, because fluids are dried up. But a yin deficient tongue would be much more likely to be red than pale or even than pink. And a real extreme yin deficient tongue is going to be dark red and really dried up and maybe even with cracks and definitely no coat. A yin deficient person doesn't have enough fluids to really make a tongue coat because the tongue coat comes from the fluids of the stomach. Okay, and then the last kind of deficiency that somebody may have would be yang deficiency. And again, because the yang is your warming, fiery, metabolic energy in the body, and there isn't enough warmth. So this yang deficient tongue will be pale because pale white is the indication of something that's cold, compared to red being the indication of something that's hot. And also, if there's any tongue coat on a yang deficient person, it's probably going to be thick and white. And that, again, is just a further indication of the cold that's in their body. Okay, so is that clear now to everybody, the different tongue presentations?
Can you go over the color of the qi deficiency tongue, other than the dampness and swollen?
Yeah,
color?
it could either be a normal tongue because it hasn't changed yet, or it could be pale, slightly pale. Yeah, there's no real specific color for a qi deficient tongue. The most striking tongues are blood deficient, which is pale and dry, and yin deficient, which is red and dry. Those are the most striking tongues. And then a swollen tongue with teeth marks, you definitely need to think about dampness, which is mostly caused by spleen deficiency.
What about the what about the coating for the qi deficiency tongue, and then also if there's any spots?
No, there shouldn't be spots. If there are spots, that's going to indicate something else, some other complication. The coating should just be a normal tongue coat, which normal tongue coat is like a thin white, not greasy, not so thick that it's obscuring the way the tongue looks underneath. Just a normal thin white coat is a normal tongue coat. And usually qi deficient people would have that kind of tongue coat.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, you're welcome. So,
could I ask
yeah.
one more clarification, just because I feel like I got very mixed up after the quiz review, but could you just repeat what the common symptoms were for qi deficiency and blood deficiency?
Yeah. So for any deficiency, there can likely be fatigue. So that is not a very specific symptom, although for qi deficiency, it's the most common symptom. So I would say fatigue, low energy, lethargy. Those would be the common signs of qi deficiency in general. But if I had said, what is a common sign, for example, of lung qi deficiency, then you would want to name some more lung-related symptom like shortness of breath, wheezing, low voice, and things like that. And then if I specifically wanted a spleen qi deficient symptom, that's when you would think about things like loose stools and poor appetite. But general qi deficiency without specifying an organ, we should just think about fatigue and no energy.
Okay.
I mean, there are lots of other things too. Some people have palpitations when they have qi deficiency, but that's getting a little bit there's a little bit of overlap there with blood deficiency with palpitations. So again, that wouldn't be as specific a symptom. Okay, so for those who are new, we do take a break at about 7:15, and that's a 10-minute break, and hopefully that's enough time. And because of that, we can end our class at 8:40. So that'll be the schedule. And also for those who are new, or not new in that you weren't on my roster, because everybody except Elham, everybody was on my roster. So everybody except Elham should have received the link that takes you into my Google Drive. And I'm going to bring up the Google Drive right now because I want to make sure that people understand what's in here. So let me just see if I can share my screen. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen and I'm showing you when you get into my Herbs 3 Google Drive, you will see a bunch of files, and the ones that we're looking at now, these are the handouts, which are going to look like this. These are the handouts. There's one sheet per herb, and these are the pages that are going to be kind of like a summary of all the things that I'm talking about in my lecture. So you can see we have right here handouts weeks 1 and 2. That's 2 weeks worth of material right there, because that's how long we're taking for the chi tonics. And then it goes on all the different weeks, all the way through week 14. And then the next document down is the herb list. And that is a document that looks like this. And so it's a 4-page document showing all of the herbs that we're going to be talking about in this trimester. And then we start to see the PowerPoint files. And these are going to be the slides that I'm showing you during the lecture. So these are mostly pictures, mostly visual things that help you see the herbs in their various forms and their various growing habits and things like that. The document that I posted, or that I had already posted, that I went over last week in the beginning on the theory part, is right here under the PowerPoints, and it's called Lecture Notes Week 1 Qi Deficiency. And that's a document that just lays out the basic theory of Qi deficiency that I talked about last week at the very beginning. So that document is in the drive too. And then you have a bunch of other documents that you don't necessarily need and at any particular time, but you might find them useful. Mostly they're tables comparing herbs that have similarities and other kinds of things like that. So you can look at those if you want throughout the term. You might just browse through there and see what's there. And then most importantly, for the people who are new, we have the syllabus, which is in the drive. And I want you to make sure that you grab that and look at it, maybe even print it, because it has the weekly outline of all the topics week by week that we're going to be covering. So that's important for you to be able to put your hands on. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the drive. And I'm going to share my screen again with the PowerPoints. Okay. All right then. So last week we covered the first 4 herbs on the herb list, and tonight we're going to cover the rest of them, all the rest of the Qi tonics. So, is everybody okay? Everybody knows where I am and where we're going and what we've done and what we're going to do. That's a cute cat, Jade. Okay, so we're moving on, and Yushin is nice enough to be our pronunciation coach. So she's going to pronounce the pinyin name, and we can repeat it along with her, but being mute, of course, so we don't all talk at once. So Yushin, can you say it?
Mm-hmm. This one is Shan Yao.
Shan Yao. Very good. This is a type of yam. It's called a wild Chinese yam, and its botanical name is Dioscorea radix. So radix means that it's a root. And this is how Shan Yao looks in its growing habitat. This is being grown for harvest, like for cultivation for Chinese herbs. So that's why you see these vines that are being held up. Now, if you were to harvest the root in the whole big piece, this is how it looks. It looks kind of like a burdock root or some other kind of like a sweet potato, not really a sweet potato. It looks like a lot of roots. But the way we'll get it from our supplier is going to look like this. And I have my sample here. And I said here it should be powdery, but it isn't always powdery because I have my sample here and it's kind of different. It's still a white slab, of course, but I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this if I hold it up. Let me. Oh, I'm having trouble with my screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, so mine looks like this. I'm sure you can't see the texture of it. It's kind of crinkly. It's not smooth. It's like the texture of like a crepe paper kind of thing. So don't always expect it to be powdery, but if you have your samples, tell me what yours looks like or feels like. Is it soft and kind of smooth? Anybody have samples? Not yet? Okay, so you should be working on obtaining your samples as soon as you can. And Adam says that Yosan will send them to you. Just ship them. And wherever you are, they'll ship them. It's not expensive. So you should contact the clinic and get going on getting your herb samples as soon as you can.
Should we get the herb samples? Sorry, Sola. Should we get the herb samples specifically for like all the group of like chi tonics like at once, or should we get all of the samples for like all of the herbs that we're going to be doing at one time?
You should get the entire pack of samples for the entire trimester because that's how you pay for it. And then they'll be separated into baggies, you know, for week by category. So now if you're doing a lab hour, some of you are already enrolled in the herb lab. If you're doing that and you want to pull your own samples as an activity that would be useful, you can do that. And then you can pull only the ones that you need for the upcoming week. But you're going to eventually have to load up because your herb lab, I believe, is just 5 sessions of 3 hours each. So by week 5, you'll be done with them if you're in herb lab right now. So you should still pay for the whole set through the clinic. And then if they will allow you to, you can gather your own samples during your lab hour or just have them put the whole thing together for you.
I tried to do that last week and they said no, they had to put together the sample packs and they didn't know how many students they had yet, so they couldn't do it.
They couldn't let you do it yourself, you're saying? Well, I don't know what to say about that. They used to let people do it, but maybe, I don't know. I just don't know what to say.
I'll ask again tomorrow. I have lab tomorrow, I'll ask.
Yeah, I mean, okay, whether or not they let you gather your own samples, it's still a really good activity to go to the different containers and look at every herb that we've been discussing in that week, because that way you get the great big amount of it. Because when you're looking at your sample in a little bag, sometimes it's not enough to really smell the way it's supposed to smell. But when you open up the big giant plastic bin, there's a whole lot of herb in there. And then you can also see any variation that there might be, you know, different maybe from the way I'm showing you. Although if I know for sure that the herbs come in a variation, I'm always going to show you everything I know about how the herb could look differently, because I think that's important. Okay, so Shan Yao is a really important, very often used herb for qi deficiency, but a little bit more than qi deficiency, because Shan Yao goes to the lung and spleen. We learned last week that lung and spleen are the most common areas for a qi tonic to go, but Shan Yao also goes to the kidney. And it doesn't go to the kidney in the same way that like ginseng goes to the kidney. It doesn't go to the kidney to really powerfully tonify the source qi in any way. It's not strong enough for that. But what it does have is it has astringency. That means that the herb can help the body to hold on to fluids, because astringency in an herb means that it's tart or sour, and it helps the body hold in fluids. Does everybody understand what I mean by that? When something is astringent, it it binds up, and so it holds in fluids. That is how Shanyao helps the kidney. So it helps the kidney not lose its moisture, and therefore it acts almost a little bit like a yin tonic. And we will find Shanyao in formulas for tonifying the yin. In fact, it's part of the most famous formula for yin tonification, which is described on your handout here. And that formula is called Lu Wei Di Huang Wan, and it consists of 6 herbs, and Shanyao is one of those 6 herbs. And it's in this formula precisely because it astringes the kidney fluids and therefore benefits the body when it's yin deficient. So that's one of the most important things about Shanyao. But it has some other things too that are important. So Shanyao is sweet and neutral in temperature, and it has pretty much equal effects on the kidney, the lung, and the spleen. So for spleen deficiency, it can treat diarrhea, fatigue, lack of appetite. It can enhance the spleen's normal function of transporting and transforming what you take in, the fluids and the food that you eat. So there's how it helps the spleen. It helps the lung by treating things like chronic cough, wheezing, shortness of breath, and also it can tonify the yin of the lung for the reason that I just got through talking about, which is that it has this astringency. And then it can tonify the kidney and astringe the essence a little bit. We have better herbs for astringing the kidney essence, and we'll talk about one of them tonight, but Shanyao can certainly be part of that strategy. And that's why we find it in the Lu Wei Di Huang Wan. Because Shanyao is a food herb, the dosage can be very large because it's really safe. And that's usually true of anything that's a food herb. We can eat it just as part of the diet. And this is often used for babies' food, the first food for a baby, of course, cooked and made into a paste like you would, with any kind of cereal or root for children. But the normal dosage in a formula is anywhere from 10 to 15 grams. I usually use about 10 of it, but you can go up to 30 grams or more if you have a real strong need for it. Now, this is an herb that is also good for this condition that we call wasting and thirsting, and that's called xiao ke. So wasting and thirsting means that people are thirsty and they're emaciated. They're wasting means that they're losing muscle and losing weight. So they're thin, they're dry. This kind of condition can exist in many different Western named conditions like cancer patients or AIDS patients or diabetes or tuberculosis. So a lot of those kind of conditions can look like wasting and thirsting, or xiao ke.
Julie, can you spell that pinyin term for that, what you just said?
Yeah, it's also, it's Xiaoke. I'll try to put it on the slide here. Xiao ke. There it is right there. And I guess, I'm not sure, maybe one of the other people in here can tell me, does xiao ke mean wasting and thirsting? Anybody know?
Ke means thirsting.
Okay, well, I'm sure that xiao means wasting then. In fact, xiao sometimes means small, like we have, xiao chai hu tang, minor. It can mean minor or small. Maybe it also means skinny. I don't know. Okay, so the important thing I want you to know about Shanyao in treating diarrhea is that, and we're going to compare this type of diarrhea to the diarrhea that we would use the next herb for, but Shanyao treats diarrhea due to spleen deficiency. So loose stool, stools that are just, the food is not being digested and it's just moving through the body too fast. But there isn't any particular sign of dampness, and there will be with the next herb. So I'm going to make a distinction between diarrhea due to dampness and diarrhea just due to spleen deficiency. And why it's important is because if somebody had diarrhea due to dampness, we would not want to use Shanyao because it has the astringency. And when you have dampness, you don't want to hold that in. So the astringency would actually make the dampness worse because it wouldn't allow it to go away and be resolved. And when somebody has a lot of dampness, then we need drying herbs. So Shanyao is not a drying herb. It's actually something like a moistening herb, just with the astringency. So that's important for you to understand. Okay, so keywords for Shanyao. So every herb that I present, there's going to be words on the screen, and these are the words that really just sum up what's most important about the herb and kind of put it into a nutshell. So tonifies the lung, spleen, and kidney, astringes the jing, and it treats diarrhea by astringing. So that's the important distinction between this herb and the herb that we're going to cover next.
What is the jing?
Jing is the essence that is stored in the kidney, and jing is the substance that controls things like sexuality, reproduction, all the stages of development in the body. So jing is like the essence that you get from your parents, and it lives in your kidney. And usually it's a finite kind of thing. You can't really build it or add to it, but you can protect it. So did you learn about jing in your basic theories class? Do you remember?
I'm taking theories right now. So.
Are you in Principles and Theories 1 right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I believe he starts out with, or he or she, who's ever teaching it, starts out with basic theory of yin and yang, and then maybe in the next week, maybe this week, they go into the precious substances like qi, blood, the different kinds of qi. So that might actually take a few weeks. But anyway, jing is the kidney essence, basically, is what it is.
Thank you.
Okay. So any other questions about Shanyao?
Julie, I have a quick question. So how do you distinguish between the damp diarrhea and something that came from the spleen diarrhea? Like if you saw a patient.
I'm going to tell you as soon as we move on to the next herb. It's pretty simple. Basically, it's pasty, and I hate to say that because it sounds kind of disgusting, but sticky, pasty diarrhea would be more of the damp type. And just plain old loose stool, possibly even watery or more liquid, that would be the spleen deficiency type. So we're going to talk about sticky, damp type of diarrhea right away, soon, in a minute. I'm just going to try to do something different to my screen. I'm not happy about it. Okay, I'm trying to see more people.
Hey, Julie, just FYI, I went and got the entire herb kit for the entire, all 3 herbs. And just for this class, there's a couple of things that the pharmacy can't make for us. So just want you to know that there's some like handfuls of stuff that's just not available at all.
Did they say why?
They just said that it's too expensive and they just don't carry it.
Oh,
the ones that
okay.
are really expensive.
Do you know which things those are from these first 2 weeks?
Yeah, for the first 2 weeks, it's going to be, I'll type it up on our chat. Yintang, Fengmi, and Jingmi.
Oh, that's funny. Those aren't expensive at all. Those are just foods. Those are rice, malt, sugar, and honey. And those are just food herbs. I understand why the clinic doesn't carry them because they would be too difficult to store. So if you're going to use any of those in somebody's formula, usually they either have it at home or you just tell them to go buy from a store, those three things. But the other things that it's possible the clinic didn't have, they definitely have Renshen, I know that. Dongshen, everything from last week they should have. I can't see anything on this herb list that there would be any reason why they wouldn't have. And these food herbs, that's why they don't have them, just because they're foods. But throughout the trimester, there will be other things that they won't supply to you, and there could be many reasons for that. It could be that they are too expensive. Herb prices have just gone through the roof in recent years. It's just been crazy. So it might be too expensive. It might be an obsolete or endangered product. And it might be toxic. So there's various reasons why they might not carry things. And if we were all together in person, if I had something that the clinic didn't supply, I would allow you to take a piece of mine. But for the honey and rice and malt sugar, you don't need to have samples of those. I would never use those for an ID herb anyway. Okay, so let's move on. And this is Baiju. Oh, I'm gonna have to adjust my screen a little bit differently. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I need Yushin to say it.
Baiju.
Baiju. Okay. And one more thing, Liana, I see that you're here, but I didn't see you before. Did you take the quiz?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. Is everything okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Baiju, I wasn't able to find a photograph of the whole root. So I had to show you this picture here, which is like an old botanical drawing, and it does show the root. It's actually not a root, it's a rhizome. So the difference between a root and a rhizome is like when you buy ginger at the store, it looks like a long kind of gnarly thing. And that's a rhizome. And a rhizome is an underground storage plant part. And then off of a rhizome, you see little roots, and those little tiny roots, you see them here in this picture. The rhizome is the big thing. And then the roots are what attach it into the ground. And usually the roots from a rhizome are really skinny little things, and they're not very medicinally useful because they don't store anything. They don't contain anything. So the rhizome is really the operative part of the Baiju. In this picture, I'm showing you the way Baiju looks on the left when you get it from your supplier, and it's kind of a grayish color. The term Baiju means white Atractylotis, and that's to differentiate it from the herb that you see on the right, which is called Songju, and that means gray Atractylotis. And Songju is also an herb that we use in Chinese medicine, but we use it, it's in a different category. It's in the category called aromatic damp transformers. But up until about the year 960, these two herbs were not differentiated. They were considered to be the same thing, and they were interchangeable. Only recently, I say recently, only since 960, are the herbs seen as having kind of different properties. And so Songju is much more drying, and it's actually more pungent and aromatic as well, which is a property that helps the herbs to be more drying. And so that's why it's found in this other category, the aromatic damp transforming category. And Baiju is less drying, but it's still very drying. So that's important for you to know. It's less drying, it's less aromatic. But if you have your samples or you go into the clinic and smell it, it's very pungent. It's actually not called pungent in its official properties, but if you smell it, it's really, really strong. And you can kind of smell the dryness, if you'll allow me to say it that way. It's just got a really a bitter and a drying kind of smell to it. So Baiju is the qi tonic that is most used for this damp type of diarrhea, which I'm going to talk about some more. And also, Baiju does not have any function in the lung. It only works in the middle. So it goes to the spleen and stomach. So if you have somebody with lung qi deficiency, Baiju won't do them any good at all. You need to use herbs like renshen and huang qi and some other herbs that we're going to talk about. But Baiju is very, very excellent for dampness in the middle and for strengthening the spleen. So when you have a lot of dampness in the middle, there's two ways to deal with it. One is to dry the dampness, but the other is to strengthen the spleen so that it can do its own job of taking care of the dampness. In other words, not allowing fluids and damp stuff to accumulate. So this herb works in both of those ways. It can be strengthening and it can also dry up the dampness all by itself. So the damp type of diarrhea is sticky, it's pasty, it's kind of messy, and there should be other damp signs in the same patient. So they should have some kind of like greasy tongue coat and possibly fluid retention elsewhere in their body and maybe a swollen tongue with teeth marks. So when somebody has dampness, it's going to show up in different places, not just in what type of diarrhea that they have. This dampness that is coming from their spleen deficiency might also result in reduced urination because they're not getting rid of fluids. They're holding on, their body is holding on to fluids. So they have edema and water retention. Maybe you see it in their legs, or maybe you'll feel it if you palpate their abdomen. Their abdomen feels sloshy and, you know, kind of like if you put your ear onto their abdomen, it sort of sounds like a washing machine. You know, you just hear a lot of fluid sloshing around. And when you press on them, they feel soft and mushy. They don't feel hard or drum-like the way somebody would if they had other kinds of stagnations like qi stagnation or food stagnation or something like that. Okay, so that's the most important thing about Baiju is treating that dampness accumulating and manifesting in that type of diarrhea. But it has some other actions as well. One is that it can stabilize the exterior and stop sweating. So when sweating is caused by spleen deficiency, it can be, it's a type of sweating that we call spontaneous sweating. It just means they're sweating with no exertion. They're just damp and clammy. So for that type of sweating, we need something that will stabilize the exterior. And actually Huang Qi, astragalus from last week, also can stabilize the exterior and often is used with Baiju in the same formula. So preventing this abnormal leakage of fluids due to qi deficiency. That's the type of sweating that it treats. And then the last thing that is important that it does is it calms the fetus. So what we mean by that is if there's threatened miscarriage caused by spleen deficiency, then Baiju can help stabilize that. So this is useful for women who have a lot of morning sickness and a lot of vomiting during early pregnancy. That type of morning sickness is seen as a sign of spleen deficiency. And we need herbs that can strengthen the spleen and stabilize the pregnancy. So we have many herbs that stabilize the pregnancy and calm the fetus, but they do it in different ways. Some of them do it by strengthening the kidney. Others do it by clearing heat if the mother has a lot of excess heat. So there's many different reasons why you would have a threatened miscarriage, but if there's spleen deficiency, then Baiju is the herb to use for that. Okay, the dosage is a little bit lower than normal just because it's a very strong acting and a very drying herb. So usually 4.5 to 9 grams is specified in formulas, but I almost always use the top end of that, 9 or 10 grams, because I feel like if I need it at all, I want it to be, powerful. So how to identify this is it kind of has an amorphic shape, you know, it's not always going to look one way. It's just kind of a blob-like shape. The ones that I have in my jar right now are much smaller. I don't know if you can see them. They're in smaller pieces, but I hope that the samples you have are nice big pieces like this. It's actually probably not an herb that would be a good candidate for an herbal ID question because it looks like a lot of other things. Within the chi tonics, it could be, let's see, doesn't really look like anything else in the chi tonics, but it's still not a very distinctive herb. So I probably wouldn't give you this as an herbal ID, just so you know. Okay, so here are the Baiju keywords. Strongly dries dampness, tonifies the spleen, stabilizes the exterior to stop sweating, and calms the fetus. And you should only use this on really, really damp people. If somebody's dry or yin deficient and you gave them Baiju, you're going to definitely make them worse. So this is not an herb for dry people, only for damp people. Okay, it's 7:16. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? And while we do that, I'm going to check my email and just make sure I got everything that I was supposed to get. And yeah, and if you need me, if you have any questions, I'm going to leave my camera and my audio on for a few minutes, but I might step out for a minute. But I'm going to just look at my email now.
What did you say the taste was for Baiju?
Oh, bitter and sweet. Bitter and sweet. It doesn't taste sweet at all, in my opinion. It's definitely got a bitter taste. But because last week we talked about the fact that all tonic herbs, maybe with one or two exceptions, all of them have the sweet flavor because sweet is what actually accomplishes tonification. So this herb is called sweet, even though if you taste it in your formula, you're definitely not going to say that it's sweet. But that's officially its temperature. I mean, its taste.
Thank you. And then what about the temperature?
It's warm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Julie, I have a few questions about the herb samples in Herb Lab. I'm sorry if I'm just repeating things that you said in the first.
Okay, wait, stop for a second. Who's speaking?
Yushan.
Okay, I just wanted to see you.
No worries.
Okay, go ahead.
About the herb samples, yeah, I might not have caught this because of having to be late to the first class, but is that something that we need to have on hand at all times? I'm just confused about that.
I would like you, yes, it is a requirement for you to have your herb samples with you whenever we meet for class. Now, I know it's going to take a week or two for everybody to get their herb samples, but once you have them, please bring them to class because while I'm showing mine, I want you to be looking at yours and making sure that you see any differences that there might be. And also, I've been teaching herbs a long time, and I can tell you that if you are engaged with looking and smelling and even tasting the herbs, you're going to learn them so much better because otherwise it's just words floating around in the universe, and looking at something visually is a much better way. So that's why I would like you to have them in class. Yes.
Okay, thanks. And then my other clarification was on Herb Lab. I was just like automatically enrolled in it. Is that part of your class or should I be attending this? And
well, okay, now when you say you were automatically enrolled in it, did you also, you didn't automatically get assigned a time slot though, did you?
No, like
okay.
When I did my registration, Dawi, I just said that like if you're doing Herbs 3, you have to also enroll in Herb Lab.
Yes, it is attached to the herb class, just like a lab in a regular science class at college. So that's why, and there's no, the tuition fee that you paid for the herbs class covers the cost of the herb lab. But what you do have to do yourself is actually sign up for a shift, and you do that in the herb lab. They have some kind of sign up sheet, and your shifts are going to be 5 weeks. So it's either the first 5 weeks, the second 5 weeks or the third 5 weeks of the 15-week trimester, and your shifts are going to be in 3-hour sections. And you really have to attend your own assigned shift, because otherwise you're showing up in other people's shifts and then the herb lab gets too crowded. And especially in these days with distancing, we can't let that happen. So find a shift that works for your schedule and then see if you can sign up for that in the herb lab.
Got it. So that is like physically go to the Yosun Herb Lab and find a shift.
Yes, and you're going to physically be attending the herb lab as well, actually,
That makes
at
sense.
Yosun. Now, those of you who are out of town, like Adam, he can't do his herb lab now, but he'll have to make it up when he takes other classes at Yosun. And we decided early on in the pandemic that we would give people until the end of their second year to complete their herb labs, just because we know it's been difficult to get shifts, especially in the first half of the pandemic. We weren't letting anybody into the herb lab. So if people have a reason why they couldn't complete it in person during their herbs class, they're allowed to complete it during their formulas classes, for example. That would be in year 2. And that would be useful as well, because when you're in formulas class, you're learning how to make formulas, and you could do some of that work in the lab.
Okay, thank you for that. That really clears up a lot of my confusion.
Okay, ask me anything, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the beginning.
Julie?
And I have other question.
Yes.
I just add this class, and I don't have anything. I don't access to syllabus and handout. And how can I access to?
Okay, I have to send you the link to an email, and I'll do that as soon as I possibly can. And I promise I will do it at least tonight when we're done with class.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elham.
I will email. I will send in the chat my email address.
Okay, because if you're actually officially in my roster, I will have it. But if I'm not in your roster, then do go ahead and send it to me in the chat. And then once you have the link, you'll see the entire drive as I showed it to you earlier on tonight.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Now I'm gonna go away. I'm gonna minimize you guys for a little bit while I do something with my email. And so I'm not gonna be available for the next few minutes to talk to you. So. Okay.
Julie?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is Tamara. I just wanted to tell you that Mayway is sold out of the herb kits.
Oh, did they say when they would have more?
I just, when you mentioned it in class, I went to order it and it says sold out.
Okay.
So I'll try to call them tomorrow. I sent Shirley an email today asking her to purchase the herbs and how do I pay for them? And I just haven't heard back from her yet.
Okay.
To have them shipped to me.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Okay.
Hey, Julie.
Yeah.
I just finished my herb lab internship, and I was doing the bags and the labels for the sample kits for HM130. So people that want to build their own, if they're going in like tomorrow or this week, they could probably just ask. Like they should be ready to start putting together.
Okay, did everybody's on break right now, so they probably didn't hear you say that. So when everybody comes back, maybe you could say that again.
Sure. I built my own too, so they do still let you do that.
Okay, good. No. Rosa, are you with us yet?
Uh-huh.
Okay, Rosa, I need your help. Oh wait, maybe I don't. Okay, I don't. I'm just really having trouble with my screen, but I think I got it back where I wanted it. I keep losing my panel that has all of you in it. It seems like when I try to share my screen, I lose all of you guys.
But is it okay now? Because I'm
Okay.
sure you shared your screen, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, now I see on my left side, I have my PowerPoints, and on my right side, I have all of you. And that's the way I want it. But somehow I was having a lot of trouble with it.
Okay, for future note, do you have a, don't screw with it now because it's good, but on the top right, it should say something a button that says view.
Yeah.
That's what you toggle around with.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes even that goes away. I know about view, and I put you guys in the gallery view so I can see everybody at once, but somehow I'm finding that that's been going away. But it's okay now.
I think sometimes if you just put your mouse in that area, it'll reignite the button, the view button.
I know you say that, and I know I'm supposed to do that, but it doesn't always work that way. So I just have to make one more little adjustment here. so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. All right. So is everybody back? Adam, you're driving.
Yes, indeed, I am.
Isn't there somebody else who can drive while you attend class?
My wife is taking care of the baby right now in the back. So,
Okay. Okay.
but she did drive for a good portion of the. I've had
Okay.
3 classes today. We've been driving all day, so it's a marathon.
That's unbelievable. Anyway, it's none of my business how you handle your. Okay, so we're gonna
Safety
move.
concern, Julie.
What?
It was a safety concern.
Yeah, it definitely was, and also a concentration concern. But I'm not really worried about Adam. So let's move on.
In my
to-
defense, Julie, I went over all the slides ahead of time and made a Quizlet set and everything for this whole lecture. So I prepared.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for doing that. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next herb, and let's see. Yuxian will say this for us.
So sorry. I'm always feel like I'm like mid swallow. It's da zao.
Da Zao, and it means big date. And we have 2 different kinds of Da Zao. We have a black one and we have a red one. The black one is by far the most commonly used, but I will talk a little bit about the red one too. It's actually exactly the same fruit. It's called Ziziphus. And I don't know why this is called jujube, because that's not really a botanical name. The botanical name is Ziziphus, and it's the same tree where we get another really important Chinese herb called Swanzhao Ren, and that's an herb to treat insomnia and calm the shen. So Da Zao, on the left, you see the black one. And the reason it's black is because the red one is the way it comes just, without any preparation. The black one is steamed and baked. And so it turns black, and it also turns really, really smoky, has a smoky smell to it. And it's really rich and kind of greasy, whereas the red one, maybe you can tell by looking at it, it's kind of lightweight. If you held them both in your hand, the black one is much denser, much heavier, and the red one is kind of light and not so greasy. Some books say that the black one is better for tonifying blood and the red one is better for tonifying qi, but they actually both can contribute to both blood and qi tonification. But I think the black one is much more powerful, and the black one is the one that you will see specified in many formulas. It's one of the most often used herbs, kind of like gansao, licorice. It's found in probably 80% of formulas, and especially formulas from the earliest time of formula writing, from the Shanghan era, because in that era, they really cared a lot about protecting the middle and making sure that other damaging herbs didn't damage the spleen and stomach. And so they used a lot of these herbs that go to the spleen and stomach, and Da Zao is one of the best ones for that. In the older formulas, you may see as many as 12 pieces of this being specified, and they're about 1 inch in their longest dimension. Nowadays, most people think that 12 pieces of this would be much too greasy. And so we usually use about 4, which ends up being about 10 to 12 grams. So that's the most usual dosage of this. Now there's another type of date that's one of my Persian students brought to me. She got it from a Persian market in the valley, and these are edible. They're really big. They must be a different species from the ones that you see here, but she buys these by the bagful. And there was a time recently where my Da Zao was not available from my suppliers, so I used these instead. And you can eat them. They're really delicious. They have a big seed in them. So if you do eat them, be careful you don't break your teeth. But now the Dadzao is available again, so there's no problem with that. Okay, so Dadzao is sweet in its flavor, and it's warm temperature, and it goes only to the spleen and stomach. So again, we have no lung function at all, but we do have a little bit of function on calming the heart and calming the shen, and that's because of its ability to tonify the blood a little bit. So we'll use this in people who are nervous, anxious, maybe have PMS or other emotional, imbalances or frequent crying. In fact, there's a formula, I think it is mentioned. Yeah, it's mentioned on your handout. There's a formula consisting of just 3 herbs, and it's called Ganmai Dadzao Tang. It has gansao, which is licorice. We're going to talk about that next. And it has Dadzao, and then it has a type of wheat product called Fu Xiao Mai. It's a kind of floating wheat. So those 3 herbs, which are all considered in a certain way almost like food herbs. I mean, certainly wheat and date are the food herbs, and the licorice is not really, unless you turn it into candy, but that's not medicinal anymore. Anyway, that formula is used for emotional shen disturbance due to qi and blood deficiency. And so it's a really excellent formula. It sounds so simple and just ordinary stuff that you might have around, but it's really, really effective. And we use it for a condition where there's like frequent hysterical crying. So you could think about somebody with trauma or just emotionally distraught and having hormonal reasons for emotional swings like PMS. That's what that formula is good for. So Dadzao, in its actions, it tonifies spleen qi, it tonifies blood. So if people have pale symptoms, like we talked about earlier, the pale face and pale lips and all of that, we can use this. Probably we would want to use other blood tonics as well, which we'll start to cover next week. And its other action is that it calms the shen for disturbances, and it also harmonizes properties of other herbs in the formula. So we call that, well, we call it harmonizing, and gansao is one of the most important herbs to do something like that. But dadzao can be substituted or added if you need more harmonizing. And harmonizing means that if other herbs in the formula might have some kind of harsh effects, like maybe even some toxicity or some incompatibility with something else, this kind of makes everything work together and lessens the interactions that might take place between herbs. Some people cannot take licorice because it is so sweet, and they don't like the flavor of it. And so if that's the case, then dadzao could be substituted for it. Okay, so it can create dampness too. So you should be careful. If somebody is already damp, you don't really want to add this, or use a very minimal dosage of it if you want to use it at all. So the red date is called hongzao, which the word hong means red. We have different words for red in Mandarin, but hong is one of them. So we have big date, and then the red one is called hongzao, red date. Okay, so we're ready for keywords. For dadzao, the keywords are tonifies the spleen, calms the shen, harmonizes and detoxifies other herbal properties. And I just mentioned the formula here, Ganmai Dadzao Tang. You're not required to know this, but it's a nice formula to know about because it's really effective. Okay, any questions so far? Okay.
Could I ask you, Julie, about that formula? Is it like a capsules? Is it a powder form? That's
You
like
can
already
probably
made?
get it in a powder form, but I just make it into a decoction. It's a famous enough formula. Probably most suppliers make some version of it either in powder or tablets or the little tea pills. There's a lot of different forms for that, but I would just make it a decoction myself. That would be my preference. Okay. Okay, let's move on. And now we're going to talk about licorice root. This is one of the most common herbs to find in a formula. I would say it may be present in 90% of formulas because it has such wide-ranging actions and such harmonizing properties. So, Yushen, can you say it?
Gansal.
Gansao. Everybody should be repeating it after Yushen so we can all become better at this. So the word gan means sweet, and the word cao, it's just a general word that means plant or herb. So that word can be used to mean any above ground plant part, like it could be leaves or sticks or anything. It's just a general word for plant. So gansao is very, very sweet. And if you have samples, you should taste it. It's said to be sweeter than sugar by a huge 50 times sweeter than sugar, gram for gram. And so a little bit of this in a formula goes a long way. Some people don't like it at all because it's so sweet.
I was told that years ago that in China, they give the licorice root to babies that are teething.
Oh, I wonder in what form they give it. I mean, I wonder if they can get the baby to drink it.
No, they chew on it, on the root.
Oh, so they just take a stick like this and they chew on it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it now because then I'll end up with stuff in my teeth, but you should try this. It's just so sweet. Okay, so its taste obviously is sweet. Its temperature is, some sources call it neutral, some call it warm. If it gets honey fried, which I'll show you a picture of that, then it's definitely going to be warmer. But as it is, I would say it's slightly warm. I really don't think we should call it neutral because most sources don't call it neutral, but it's somewhere in there, mildly warm. The channels that it goes to, officially, according to Bensky, they are the heart, lung, spleen, and stomach. But as with ginseng, some people think that gansao can go to all 12 channels. And that just indicates how wide acting it is, how useful it is, how much it's in so many formulas. The fact that anybody could even say that it goes to all 12 channels. So here's the plant, how it looks, the above ground part. Here's how the whole roots look. So they're oh, somebody needs to be muted. I'll mute her.
فوت کرده و ما درگیر این هستیم.
Elham.
خیلی به هم ریخته هستیم. نشد که.
Okay, I muted her. Okay, so these are the whole roots. They're cylindrical. They're fairly large because when you cut them then into slices, they look like this. So on the left, you have just the raw gansao. And on the right, you have the honey fried gansao. And this is called gansao, Z-H-I. I'll see if I can put that on the handout.
Why would you honey fry it if it's already so sweet?
I'll tell you why. That's a good question. So gansao means prepared gansao, but the word meaning prepared can mean a lot of different things. in a lot of different preparations, but in the case of gansao, it always will mean honey fried. And the reason you would honey fry it is if you want to make it sweeter even than it already is, but also more moistening and warmer. That's why you would honey fry it. So in a lot of the ancient formulas, they specify honey fried gansao when they're particularly concerned about protecting the spleen, or when they're afraid that some other herbs in the formula might be too drying, and they want to make sure that the gansao is really moist and sticky and very tonifying. So that's why they honey fry it. You, though, as a herbalist, you can choose whether you want to use honey fried or plain gansao in any formula where honey fried is specified. If you don't want it to be that sticky and sweet, you can specify the raw. Or if you think that the honey fried might be too warming and you want a slightly more neutral or a cooler herb, it's not going to be cool, but it's cooler, then you can specify the raw gansao. I have both types in my pharmacy, and you can buy the honey fried from your supplier, so you don't have to go and honey fry it yourself in a wok. It comes already honey fried. A lot of herbs can come honey fried if you specify them that way.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so gansao tonifies the spleen and augments the qi, or boosts the qi, increases the qi. It regulates the pulse. When the pulse is irregular due to qi or blood deficiency, it can have a regulating effect on the pulse. And we have a formula called Gansao Tang, honey-baked licorice decoction, which has an alternate name, which is called Restore the Pulse Powder. And that, or Restore the Pulse Decoction, that formula is meant for palpitations and irregular heart rate, but only if it's due to qi and blood deficiency. It's not meant for palpitations due to other causes, like, for example, you might have heart fire or some kind of liver disturbance that's really speeding up the heart. No, it's not meant for that type of palpitations, just the deficient ones. Gansao also moistens the lungs and can stop cough. And it can do this whether you use the raw form or the honey baked form. It's still moistening either way. Of course, it's more moistening when you use the honey fried one. Okay, and then it also reduces the toxicity that I talked about that could come from toxic other herbs that are in the formula, or toxins that are occurring from an illness like fire toxin in the throat. We call that could be like a sore throat or like a strep throat or a mononucleosis or some kind of condition like that where you have infection in the throat. Gansao can help to detoxify that. And so almost like clearing infection, I think you could say. And it could also be used to reduce toxic effects of other drugs that people might be taking. So sometimes we'll use gansao in a formula when people are taking something that is going to be acting toxic in their body, like a lot of drugs are, with side effects. So gansao could help mitigate some of that as well. Gansao also has another action, but only or mainly when it's combined with another herb, which is baishao. Baishao, we're going to talk about next week. It's the white peony root, and it's a blood tonic. And when gansao is combined with baishao, together they have a really good action to relieve spasms. And these could be spasms of the skeletal muscle or spasms of smooth muscle. Like if somebody has digestive spasms, like they feel like their stomach is just almost like an irritable bowel syndrome or a spastic colon. When they have symptoms like that, like I have a patient who calls it like razor blade feelings in his colon as his food moves through his body. So I've given him this combination. But if somebody just has muscle twitching, muscle spasms, you can use gansao and baishao together. And it's really, really effective, but you need to use a larger dose of Gansao than you normally would. So normally I use only about 3 grams of Gansao because it's really strong. It's so strongly sweet. And so in this muscle spasm situation, you can use 10 grams of Gansao and a very large dose of Baishao, like 30 grams of Baishao. And that's what you need in order to treat this muscle spasm problem. You need bigger dosages like that. Now, Gansao also acts a little bit like a steroid in the body, in the sense that it can stimulate the adrenal glands and it can cause people to retain fluid. And so for that reason, it's contraindicated in people who have high blood pressure, because those people do not want to increase fluid in their body, or that'll make their blood pressure go higher. So Gansao, you need to use a little bit of caution. Except that, having said that, I already said it's in 90% of formulas and it's generally not causing anybody any problem. That's probably because it's used in a really small dose and combined with other things. So if somebody has a mild or borderline hypertension and you definitely want to use Gansao, just ask them to check their blood pressure more often. Maybe even once a day for a while, but if they find that it's mostly normal, they don't have to check it every day. They can check it once a week or whatever. It's generally not really a problem for people, but that's just a caution that we have to be aware of. Let's see. Yeah, and I wrote on your handout, if you are concerned about water retention and edema, but you still want to use Gansao, you can combine it with herbal diuretics. So we have herbs like Fu Ling, which is, you've probably all seen it if you've ever had an herbal decoction. It looks like a white curl of, it's like a root. It's not a root, it's like a fungus that grows around the root of other trees. Anyway, Fu Ling is a very good all-purpose diuretic, and that could help prevent this buildup of fluids. Modern usage also says that Gansao can be useful in stomach ulcers. I'm not exactly sure what it is about Gansao that makes it useful for stomach ulcers. It's possible that John Chen talks about that. Actually, let me just look as long as we're talking about it. There's nothing like the present for looking things up, right? Gansao.
I had bleeding ulcers back in 1990, and powdered licorice, Gansao, was a big part of my treatment, and it cured me.
That is fantastic to hear. It seems like you've been using Chinese medicine, Louise, for a long time.
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Okay, let's see. Gansao, 866. Okay, under pharmacological effects, he talks about the adrenal effect. He talks about anti-inflammatory, gastrointestinal. Many components of Gansao have been proven to prevent and treat peptic ulcers. The mechanisms of this action include inhibition of gastric acid, binding and deactivation of gastric acid, and promotion of recovery from ulceration. So there you have it. And clinical studies on peptic ulcer, he just cites, I can only see one study that he cites. 100 patients with gastric or duodenal ulcers were treated with 15 milliliters of Gansao extract 4 times daily for 6 weeks with a 90% rate of effectiveness. So that's an extract. So there's lots of different ways that you can use this. That's really great to hear. Okay, so let's look at keywords for Gansao. Tonifies the spleen, detoxifies the herbal and drug side effects, moistens the lung, and relieves muscle spasm, but only when combined with Baishao. Okay, great. Okay, the next herb is also a rhizome. And let's see. Okay, Yuxian,
Huang Jing.
Huang Jing. So the word Huang, it means yellow, and we'll see this word a lot. We have lots of herbs that are yellow and that have the word Huang in their title. Jing here means essence. So this herb name means yellow essence. And the reason it's called yellow is the root itself isn't yellow, but the root is black and sticky. And I'll show you a picture of it. When you cook this, the resulting liquid will be yellowish. And I think that's why it's called yellow essence. So this is called polygonatum, and the root is, or the part is the rhizome. And this is a plant that is commonly called Solomon seal, or it's known as Siberian Solomon seal. And we have another Solomon seal as well that's a yin tonic. We'll get to that in a couple of weeks. But here's how the plant looks growing. And then here's how the whole roots look. So they're big, or they're not roots, they're rhizomes. They're big, black. They're not black. They can't be black when they come out of the ground. Obviously, these must have been steamed the way we steam other herbs, and they turn black like this. But when you get it from your supplier, it's in pieces and it looks like this. Small, black, sticky, very gummy. You have to wash your hands after you handle these. But for some reason, the last time I ordered Huang Jing, it arrived like this. It looks like it's the rhizome without having been steamed. And I don't know why it came in that form, but I just assume it's going to be at least somewhat as useful. So I just accepted it, and I've been using it this way. But by far, this is the more common appearance of Huang Jing, this black form. And if you have your samples, or if you find it in the herb lab, it'll look like this, black. So Huang Jing, I love this herb, and I feel like it's an underused and maybe underappreciated herb. The reason I like it is that even though it's a qi tonic, it also has abilities to nourish the yin. And when you look at it, you can just see how it would do that, because it's got so much richness in it and so much juiciness. And so it really is a qi tonic that acts like a yin tonic. And the only problem with using it is if the person is really damp or they have difficult digestion, this would be hard for them to digest and a little bit too sticky for them. But otherwise, like a dry, thin, dehydrated person with yin deficiency would definitely be a very good candidate for this herb. So looking at its properties, it's sweet in flavor and it's neutral in temperature. That also makes it really versatile. You can use it for people who are cold or people who are hot. It doesn't matter. It won't change anything. By the way, in certain texts, herbs are found in different categories from the ones that I'm discussing them in. So for example, in John Chen's herb book, he has this with the yin tonics, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I ask you on an exam to name what category something is in, I want you to use the category that I'm presenting them in, because that's the more official, Bensky way. Okay, so channels. This goes to lung, spleen, and kidney, and it has good effects on all three of those areas. So I'll go over those. It tonifies the spleen qi. So it's just a good general spleen tonic if the person is not too damp. So just be careful. If they're a damp person, they have to have baiju instead. It augments the spleen yin. We usually don't talk about spleen yin because the spleen actually likes to be dry. You know, the spleen does not like to be damp and overloaded and wet because then it can't do its proper job. So it likes to be dry. And so I'm not really sure why in the books they mention the word spleen yin, but basically we can just say that it augments the yin. So if there's any kind of dryness, dry mouth, dry stool, dry tongue, anything like that, then it can help moisten those. It also moistens the lungs. So if you have a dry cough, if you had somebody with qi and yin deficiency of the lungs, so shortness of breath, wheezing, dry cough, this would be a perfect herb for those people. And then it also tonifies the kidneys and the essence. So I can use this herb for example, for infertility patients, if they have essence deficiency. Usually if there's infertility, you always want to look to the kidney because the kidney is in charge of reproduction and all hormonal functioning. So always look at the kidney if somebody's suffering from infertility, but this particular herb would be a great one to use, especially if they're dry and especially if they're blood deficient also. If they have scanty menstrual periods or, you know, some kind of abnormal menstrual cycle, then we may want to tonify the blood and the yin. And then the last thing is that it works for wasting and thirsting. And that's a little bit obvious when we see how moistening it is, because wasting and thirsting is all about dehydration and losing weight. So a proper dosage of this is probably about 10 to 12 grams. You could use more if the person really needs a lot of moistening and tonification. You should not use it for spleen deficiency with dampness, as I already said. And it has also been shown to lower blood pressure. So it probably won't lower somebody's blood pressure if they have normal blood pressure, but if they have high blood pressure, you can use this as part of a treatment. It wouldn't be the whole treatment, but it could be useful. Okay, so Huangjing keywords. Tonifies the spleen, nourishes the yin, especially the lung, and tonifies the kidney essence. Those are the main important things. I mean, I said a lot of other things that are important. Tonifies spleen, lung, and kidney. Those all three channels are important. By extension of it being a yin tonifying herb, we can say that it treats dryness and moistens the lungs and treats the wasting and thirsting. So that's why I didn't list those as separate, you know, keyword actions, but it's expansion of the second item would cover those. Okay, so now we have the 3 food herbs that Sola talked about that you don't have samples for. And these are important herbs. They are found in some formulas, but they're not your big guns. You know, they're not the really powerful tonics that we've talked about, like Renshen, Huangqi, even Gansao. You know, those are the herbs that you're going to use over and over and over again for qi deficiency. But the food herbs are useful and we will find them in some formulas. So the first one is maltose or barley malt sugar. So Yushen, can you pronounce it?
Yi Tang.
E tongue. So we don't really pronounce the Y particularly. It's more just the E tongue. barley malt sugar. So here's how it is, like in a liquid, almost like a syrup form. Barley malt comes from barley, the grain. Yeah, it's a grain. And I guess it has sweetness in it. Okay, so this is sweet and slightly warm. It goes to lung, spleen, and stomach. Most of these food herbs go, of course, to spleen and stomach. A couple of them also go to the lung. So this is used as a general tonic herb added to formulas, but not cooked. So you would just dissolve a little bit of this into the finished decoction instead of cooking it. So if you can buy prepared barley malt syrup like this in stores, probably at Whole Foods they have it, or you can buy malted powder. And so you could add powder into milk if you wanted to make a drink. Or you could put it into anything. You could put it into tea, maybe even. So it protects the spleen. It also moistens the lung, and it can stop cough. It's really, most food herbs are mild. So you'll see this added as a way to sometimes protect the spleen against herbs that would be really too harsh. For example, we have a formula, it's called White Tiger Decoction by Hutong. And this is a formula for clearing severe stomach fire, like with an infection. If you had somebody with, septicemia or just some high fever condition, and you want a really clear fire, we're going to use a mineral herb, and the mineral herbs are notoriously hard to digest. And so in that formula, we have Yitong as an additive to protect the stomach. And sometimes we use sweet rice also as a substitute for this. So it's just a way to protect the spleen and stomach from herbs that would otherwise be hard to digest or damaging. Okay, the keywords for all three of these, I'm going to show you after we cover all three of these. I'm just going to go through them first and then come back to the keywords. So this is the next one, and I didn't even put the tones on. So the first tone is flat, the second tone is down. So can you say it, Yushin?
Feng mi.
Feng mi. So this is honey. It's called mel, and that's a Latin term where many languages take their word for honey from that word. So this is just bee honey. I think the literal name means bee honey. It is also sweet and neutral, or it's also sweet. It's different from the prior herb in being neutral. It goes to the same channels, lung, spleen, and stomach. Some sources say large intestine because it does moisten the intestines, but mostly we'll use honey as a way to form other herbal products. So you've heard of honey pills, and those are those little black pills that prepared herbal formulas come in a bottle, and they're called honey pills. And so they're made, if you were going to make them yourself from scratch, which I don't recommend, you would powder all of your herbs really finely and then form them into little balls using honey as a way to hold them together. That's a laborious process. There's no reason to do that. But the other way that honey is used is in the sense of like the honey fried gansao, to make as a preparation for other herbs if you want them to be more moistening. You can basically honey fry anything if you want it to be more moistening. We often do that with herbs that stop cough, because if somebody has a really dry cough, we'll want to make our herbs as moistening as possible, and honey frying them is a good way to do that. So also, don't use honey on children under 1 year of age, because it can have toxins in it that their stomach isn't capable of protecting them from. I'm not sure what those toxins are, but especially raw honey could be dangerous for children. So honey strengthens the middle, it moistens the intestines, it can generate body fluids, it can harmonize other herbal actions like gansao, or you can honey fry gansao in honey. It lubricates the bowel. I think I said that. It eliminates toxins, and it can be used for oral ulcers, like, gum erosion and things like that. We have other herbs that do that as well, but this is one that could also do that. And some say that this can protect the liver against toxic substances, like if somebody is exposed to chemicals or paint or drugs or alcohol or anything that can make the liver toxic. This can be somewhat protective. Okay, and then the last food herb is rice. So this is called Yuxian.
Do you know what the tone on the first one?
Yeah, straight and then down up. I don't.
Okay, then it's Jing Mi.
Jing Mi. So yeah, I can't remember. The tones are called first tone, second tone, third, and fourth. I never remember which one is which. But anyway, Jing Mi, and sometimes this is also called Gung Mi. I'm not sure what the two different translations mean. It doesn't matter. I think in Baihu Tong it's called Gung Mi. So it just means it's a sticky rice that is used as a food. So you can make a porridge out of it, or a congee. A congee is like a porridge that sometimes other herbs are added to it. Other medicinal or food herbs are added into a congee. And that makes a very digestible, tonifying food for people who have been sick or who can't digest other things, or, who've been vomiting or whatever. It makes a really bland, easy to digest food for them. So it's sweet and neutral. Some sources say cool, but most say it's neutral. And it goes only to the spleen and stomach, not to the lung at all. So it basically just tonifies the spleen. It can stop diarrhea. It can stop spontaneous sweating if due to qi deficiency, because we're in qi tonics here. It can treat thirst. And it can also protect the stomach against herbs that would otherwise be damaging, like bitter, cold herbs or mineral herbs that are very hard to digest. Honey is a good way to help protect that. So now we'll just look at keywords for all of these. And they're pretty much the same thing. Some form of tonifying, moistening, either moistening the lung, moistening the intestines. The honey is used to stir fry many other herbs, and the jingmi is used to protect the spleen from harsh herbs. So just between you and me, I probably won't test you on these three very mild, kind of ordinary food herbs. We have other much more important herbs that we've gone over that I will concentrate on, especially for quizzes, but that's not to say that you won't find these at some future date on a major exam, either Yosan's exam or a state board exam, because they are on the herb list, so they are, fair game. But I'm just not going to waste your time testing you on these things because they're kind of minor, I would say. Not to say that they're not useful, because they certainly are. Okay, we have one more herb to talk about, and then I'm going to give you a summary of this entire category in ways that you can kind of group them together by sort of sub actions. So we're going to look at the last herb here, which is a bean. And Yuxian?
Bai Bian Do.
Bai Bian Do. The word do means bean, or something like a bean. Like when we look at nutmeg, the word for nutmeg has the word do in it. Now, of course, we know nutmeg isn't a bean, but anything that looks bean-like is sometimes called a do. So this is called Dolichorus semen. Semen is a word for seed, but it can also be interchangeably used for a bean or, something bean or seed like. So this means white hyacinth bean. Hyacinth bean is the name of this bean here. It comes in a purple. It can come in a white variety. It can either be black as well, but the ones that we use medicinally are white ones. So this is a common garden plant. You can eat the beans. You just pick them and do what you would do with any other kind of bean. Here's how they look when you get them from your supplier. They're about maybe 1/2 inch in the longest dimension. And my herb teacher, Denise Newmark, who taught me everything in my first year, all of my points, all of my herbs, and even my diagnosis. So she was a huge influence on me. She taught here from the very beginning, from the founding of Yosan. Anyway, she used to say that these look like white Oreo cookies with the filling squeezing out. So that white thing that you see there kind of looks like icing coming out of a sandwich cookie. So that's a way that you can remember this. Actually, bai biando doesn't mean white hyacinth bean. It means white flat bean. So these are kind of flat. They're not completely round. So this is a food herb also, but it also is a very useful medicinal herb. And this herb is found or has been found in different categories over the years. So in some books, you find it as a spleen tonic, which is why we're studying it now. But in other books, it's found with the diuretics because it does have a diuretic effect. And in other books, it was usually found in the category of herbs called herbs for summer heat. And in Bensky's second edition, there were only 3 herbs in his category for summer heat. And when he wrote his third edition, I think he decided that that was too small a category, and he just eliminated it as a category and just put the herbs into different categories where else they might belong. So bai biando ended up with the qi tonics, which is a good appropriate place for it because it does tonify the qi, but it also does these other things. So bai biando is sweet and neutral, and it goes to the spleen and stomach. John Chen calls it slightly warm, but most sources call it neutral. And then a few sources called it cooling. And I'll explain why that could possibly be. Well, I'll explain it right now. So when we talk about summer heat, we're talking about a special kind of heat that only occurs in the hottest and most humid days of summer, which is very commonly found in the south part of France. I mean, not of France, I'm sorry, of China. Actually, the south part of any country could have, I've been thinking about France lately. The south part of any country could have a hot and humid climate, but in China, the south is very big and they really, really suffer from summer heat. So summer heat happens in the hottest days and there's humidity, and we could think of it the way we think about sunstroke, is somebody might have vomiting, nausea, they might lose consciousness, they might have a high fever. And the reason some sources might say that this is cooling is because if something clears summer heat, then it would naturally be cooling. But I think what this herb does instead of cooling is it really treats mostly the damp aspect of the summer heat. So the humid aspect, the vomiting, the clammy sweat, and those kind of things. It's not particularly cooling. For really clearing summer heat, we need other things like watermelon rind is a really, really good one for summer heat. So yeah, okay, so the actions are, it clears summer heat, especially when there's diarrhea and vomiting. And it can also be used for pregnancy nausea as well. Although in my experience, most women with pregnancy nausea don't want to take any herbs orally. They don't even really want to swallow pills because they may still taste them. So for morning sickness, I just use acupuncture. It works really well. But if they can swallow herbs, then this could be used for pregnancy nausea. It also, of course, strengthens the spleen and treats chronic diarrhea. That's its function within the category of being a spleen tonic. And then it can also relieve other kinds of dampness. So for example, a vaginal discharge, an abnormal vaginal discharge due to spleen dampness is going to be like a white, profuse discharge. And it's not normal. And so it's not infected though. It's not like a yeast infection or a bacterial infection with a vaginal discharge. Those have to be treated with something completely different. But if it's just dampness overflowing and creating excess vaginal discharge, this herb is good for that. It also can treat food poisoning and alcohol intoxication. So if somebody's in an acute state of having consumed too much alcohol, Bibiendo can help relieve the symptoms of that. And we have other herbs that are also good for that, which I won't go into right now, but I've talked about them in other classes. So yeah, so those are the three main actions: treating summer heat, strengthening the spleen, stopping diarrhea, and relieving vaginal discharge. So even though this is a food herb, it's really a very useful and broad acting herb with a lot of different actions. So this is found in a fair amount of traditional formulas. You can stir fry this to make it even more strengthening to the spleen. So stir frying something that is already neutral can make it warmer. And if you stir fry it till it's even a little bit charred, you know, not blackened, but just a little bit charred, that can make it more astringent for the diarrhea too. So charring anything will help with diarrhea. Yeah.
Is it stir fry or the charring that can make it warm?
Charring. So charring is basically frying it in a dry pan or wok. So you're not adding any oil to it. So you're just stirring it over heat until it turns a darker color, slightly darker, just turns a little bit charred, but not black. That's how you stir fry. That's how you char something. Okay, so Bibiendo, keywords: strengthens the spleen and clears damp, clears summer heat, especially the damp aspect of summer heat, because you can have summer heat condition with much more extreme heat and fever, or you can have a summer heat condition with much more damp predominant. And relieves toxins from either food or alcohol or poisons. Okay, so that takes us through all of the chi tonics, and we will have another quiz next week. And the following quizzes will mostly be about the material that was presented in the prior week, this week, but I'm always going to reserve the right to have one or two questions that pertain to prior material. And the reason I do that is because I want you to always be reviewing. I don't want you to only know things for 1 week, because pretty soon before you know it, we'll be in week 7 and we'll have the midterm. So by putting one or two questions from prior weeks, I'm encouraging you to keep on reviewing, because that's going to be better for you. Okay, and so that'll be next week. And then next week we will cover the blood tonics, all of the blood tonics. And there's only 8, but they're very major, famous herbs like Dongui and Romania, and herbs that I'm sure that you've heard of. So that'll be a fun topic, because everybody, especially women, always seem to need blood tonics at some point. So let me go to the next slide, because this is going to be a summary and this is my own system here. This is not something you'll really find in your books necessarily. You might, but this is my system of how to really organize this material of the chi tonics. So I put them into 4 separate groups. So group 1 are the really powerful major herbs for chi deficiency. So those would be Renshen, Dongshen, Huangqi. Those are all from last week. And then Gansao and Dadzao. And if anybody missed last week's lecture, I want you to be sure to get the recording from Torah. I think you said that you were going to do that, Elham, and then play through the whole thing. So that's going to be 2.5 more hours of Qi tonics, but you need to do that to catch everything. And then Gansao and Dadzao, I'm putting those in the major Qi deficiency group because they are so often used and so widely found in formulas. So the second group is much more focused on spleen deficiency with dampness in the middle. And that, to me, that's just 3 main herbs. Baiju, which is very, very drying, so that's good for damp. Shanyao is more for spleen deficiency than it is for damp, but it can fit into this group as well. And then Baibiando, because it treats diarrhea and other manifestations of spleen deficiency. So that's the second group. The third group are herbs that, although they are Qi tonics, they also benefit the yin in some way. So we could think of them as both Qi and yin tonics. So those ones are Huangjing from tonight, the polygonatum, Tai Shen from last week, which is very good for the Qi and the yin, and then Shiyang Shen, that's American ginseng. And I told you that I wasn't going to cover it with the Qi tonics because it really is a yin tonic, and we'll cover it in week 4 when we do the yin tonics. But I still wanted to at least mention it in this group here. I hope I'm not confusing you by doing that, but it's so similar to Asian ginseng. It's just different because it's American ginseng and it's cooler. So I just wanted to at least mention it in this group here. And then group 4 are just the food herbs, the maltose, the honey, and the rice. Baibiando is also a food herb, but because it's much more, I guess, useful and clinically necessary, I put it in with group 2 because I don't want to just treat it like all it is a food herb, because it really just is so much more than that. So that's a way for you to organize your thinking. And whenever possible, and especially if we have a big category of herbs, I'm going to want to give you some sort of summary like this, because I feel like it helps you just get things a little bit more organized. So that's why I did that. Now, yeah. Question? Oh, you just said thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, before I let you go, Elham, could you please tell me your email address so I can send you the link? Or did you put it in the chat?
Yeah, yes, I sent it to you in directly your chat.
Okay, let me see if I can find the chat. For some reason I can never find the chat.
I placed it in the chat, Julie, for Elham.
Okay, but I'm trying to find the chat. I can't bring up the, I know, Rosa, you said if I put my mouse somewhere, the chat will come up, but it's not.
Bottom bar.
Bottom bar. Okay, I'm on the bottom bar. I see no chat.
You see participants.
No, for that, I think I need to go to, oh, I have participants on the top bar. Oh, there's the chat. It's on the top bar. I guess I can move the bar anywhere I want it to be. In my system, it's on the top. Okay, so Elham, I'm going to write this down.
The second one is correct. The first one I put mistakenly 72, but it's 71. The second one is correct.
Oh, okay. Okay, Yagubi, is that how you say your last name?
Yagubi, HE71@yahoo.com.
Okay. Okay, so as soon as I get home tonight, I will send you the link into the drive. Yeah. And then let's see. The other thing I wanted to address is Yoshi, don't be upset, but I wasn't able to open your quiz. Whatever way Esmeralda sent it to me, which was all she did was forward it from what you sent her. It's some kind of encrypted document that just says In fact, I'll see if I can show it to you, how it yeah, okay, here's what Esmeralda sent me, forwarded message from Renee Blakeney, and this is what I see here, but I can't open anything. So what I would like you to do, Yoshi, don't be upset. Just send me an email, respond to one of my emails, and just put your answers in it. Just list your answers. Can you do that?
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Okay, and then we're gonna have to figure out what format is this that you're sending me stuff. Maybe Rosa knows.
What format did you?
Do you
type it in?
recognize what we're looking at here on my email that that
The presentation's still up, so we can't see what you're talking about.
no.
Oh, you know what just occurred to me? My Word is expired. I need to put my new, because you sent it in Word. Is it a Word document?
Yeah, but
I was
how did
able
you
to
even
answer it? And I can maybe like send you a screenshot of my test because I
okay,
have
but
it
how
on my
did you even hold on, I'm doing too many things at once. I'm gonna try to share my screen again. Yeah. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Rosa, do you recognize the way this looks, this email?
Yeah, I mean, it looks okay. Did you click the top one or the bottom one?
I tried to click on anything. What I see is just a magnifying glass. You know, I mean,
Try
a
to
thing
click
that
on the bottom one.
yeah, and I tried that. Nothing, it's just
When
not.
it blinks red, can you click it?
I'm clicking it. It's red. What do I do now?
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
Should I
don't
right click
know.
it?
The magnifying glass is not a good sign.
Okay, well, so Yoshi, if the problem is that your Word is expired, if that's all the problem that there is, I don't know then how you even opened the quiz as I sent it to you.
I don't know. I'm really confused, but
Okay, well,
I
you'll
figure
figure it
push
out.
come to shove, I can just like screenshot the test and maybe that'll work if I send you
Well,
the
what I
photo.
would rather have you do, because screenshotting then means I'm going to get a picture of it. It's really hard for me to deal with. And if I print it, it's got so much black ink on it that it just makes my paper wet. So what I would rather you do, if you can't figure out something else, is just send your answers in an email. That's perfectly fine. And it's very simple to do. So you'll take your quiz on paper or on your screen or whatever way you do it, and then just transfer your answers into an email. But just when you do that, be very careful, because as you're transferring them, you could maybe make a mistake. So just check your answers really well. And by the time the midterm comes, I would like you to somehow have solved this problem so that you don't have such a big task of transferring a bunch of stuff into an email, because that would be a headache for you.
Right. I have my new Word. I just have to put it on my computer. I haven't done it.
Okay, and maybe that'll solve it. Other people, Anitra, I know she prints out the quiz on paper and takes it by hand, just as though we were in class. And then she figures out a way to convert it into a PDF and sends it to me that way. So what I'm looking at is her handwritten quiz, which is actually how Tamara sent it as well. And that's fine also. Okay.
You can also open with Google Docs and then download it as a PDF and send it back to you with a PDF.
Sometimes when people have done that and I try to open it, I have to go through another step, which is requesting permission from whoever sent it. And so I really don't prefer doing it that way. I don't know why Google Docs makes me do that, but it's like I receive it and then I have to email you back and request permission, which is just too many steps. So if you can do a Word document or a PDF or just a list within the email, those are 3 methods. All of those will work.
Julie?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Tamara. I just wanted to say, Yoshi, the Office 365 is free for students. So you just go to Office 365 on Microsoft, sign up for an account, and then you can download and use it online free. You just sign up with your Yosan email address.
Oh, great. Okay. So
Great.
I go to Microsoft or whatever.
Email me and I'll send you the link. Tamara, so my first name, Tamara at Tamara, Tamara, Dixon, Dixon.com. And I'll send you the link.
Great, Tamara. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much. Now, the two people who just joined us, Forever and Elham, do you have any questions about the way this whole thing is going? I mean,
No.
are you good with everything?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I need to get access to syllabus and the handout, and it will be done. Thank you. And
Yes.
I will ask
Yes.
to Ms. Laura to send me the record of the video at the class, and
Yes.
it would be perfect.
Okay, good. So I will send you the link as soon as I get home tonight. And
Thank you.
if you have any trouble with the link, you just email me back and we'll see what needs to be done.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so it's time to sign off now. Thank you, everybody, for ironing out all these little glitches. They will eventually go away. And now I'll go away. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Have
Have a good night.
Okay, bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Julie.